Welcome to the Delaware Riverkeeper Networks and the 2024 Watershed Congress virtual program. The Watershed Congress is organized by the Delaware Riverkeeper Network in collaboration with many other organizations. My name's Fred Stein. I work with the Delaware Riverkeeper Network. I'm the Community Action Coordinator. I'm also a moderator, or the moderator, for this session, entitled Mastery High School of Camden, a learning campus on the Delaware River. We're pleased to present our speakers in this session. We have three. The first I'll present is Justin Dennis. Justin?
Thank you, Fred. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Justin Dennis. I'm the Camden Program Director with Trust for Public Land. I want to just thank you for making time this afternoon, late on a Thursday, and for those that are joining after the fact via recording, thank you as well. Also, quick thanks for Rosa and Aaron for making time to share their expertise with everyone today. TPL is always delighted when we get to work with NV5, and this project is no exception. Perhaps there's some bias in this, perhaps there isn't. I feel this is one of, if not the coolest projects happening across the country right now. It just blends everything so well, as you'll hear. It hits a lot of components that are of interest to this group, like water quality assurance, stormwater management, workforce development, recreation and public space equity. It's located perhaps in the best location for this type of project to occur. It's nested within hundreds of millions of dollars of investment occurring along the back channel in Camden, New Jersey, which I'll share about in a moment, and is along a major circuit trail arterial corridor, which is the Greater Philadelphia region's multimodal transportation network. I would be remiss also to not mention Mastery High School here, who is not on our list of speakers, but they're just an absolutely stellar partner. They do great work really around community engagement and workforce development and social emotional learning. A lot of that comes out through this project and will be manifested through the continued stewardship of the space after ribbon cutting. Mastery's really taken a leap of faith here. This is a big project for a high school, and we recognize that, so I wanted to just shout them out here. A quick overview on who TPL is. We're a national nonprofit that works to connect people to the benefits and joys of the outdoors. Our mission is to create parks and protect land for people, ensuring healthy and livable communities for generations to come. And to date, we have completed nearly 5,500 park and schoolyard land and trail projects nationally, resulting in over 3 million acres of land protected and over 5,300 public space points enhanced or created through our work. And to accomplish this, we really work closely hand in glove with communities to identify and implement these multi-benefit public space projects that serve as climate, community, and health needs. And this is all through the lens of reducing the public space equity gap, which we know is aligned primarily across race and economic lines. 100 million Americans do not live within 10-minute walk of nature, whether it's public space or a nature area, and that includes 28 million youth without close to home access to nature. So really stark numbers pointing to the need for this type of intervention and the scale of this type of work and how that could have impact nationally. So in our opinion, this is really where community schoolyards are a solution that's hidden in plain sight, and I'll share more about that in a bit. So this is just a map of where Camden is located, just to give some geographic framing. Camden is a city of 71,000. 53% of individuals identify as Hispanic, 42% identify as Black, 3% white, and 2% Asian. So a majority Black and brown city. At its peak, Camden's population was about 128,000. Through a mix of systemic disinvestment, industry shifting and leaving, and the following white flight, Camden developed the stigma that many of us grew up hearing about. And despite being named America's most violent city in 2012, that's not the Camden that I know, nor is it the Camden that most people who live, work, or play in the city know. We know a vibrant, caring, humble, proud city that loves hard on others, and I think even harder on itself. And I'm just continually blown away by the challenges that Camden comes together to work through. So I'm wanting to just uplift that really explicitly here. It's really that ethic of love that has Camden rising right now. And I would say parks, social services, education, and economic development have really strengthened the heartbeat of the city. it's not all perfect. I'm not here to say that it is, but by and large, people in the city feel that this is really now doing better than it has in decades, and wanting to put that out here into the virtual void so that everyone can hear it as well. Next slide, please. This is just an image of North Camden, which is where Mastery High School's project site is situated. The community is primarily Latinx. Just over, I would say, 70% of the population identifies as Hispanic, and a language other than English is spoken in three-quarters of homes in North Camden. There is an energetic community greening ethic already in this neighborhood, so this project is really in perfect alignment with the hyper-local approach that North Camden has, and really within the neighborhood and cultural dynamics as well. It fits really well into the broader city and regional priorities too. Just by way of background, Mastery High School moved into this building after it was vacated by the city's school district in the early to mid-thousands. Through the Parks and Open Space planning process, which we co-led with community partners, the site was identified as having really critical opportunities to reopen Camden's waterfront. And you'll see once we move into the next slide how this fits into the broader context. This is the only high school in North Camden, but it services the full city. There are about 850 students on this campus every day, and they offer a great variety of curricular and extracurricular opportunities that prioritize ensuring their students are workforce ready or near workforce ready when they graduate. So to accomplish that each year, they place about 40 to 50 seniors in internships within the city. As part of their curriculum, they spend 2 to 3 afternoons a week there at a minimum, working and gaining practical experience with local employers. Many of them secure gainful employment immediately upon graduating, which is awesome. And based on original surveys and conversations, we originally saw this as a workforce development campus. In those surveys, students were saying they didn't feel they had the skills necessary to make change in their community or to get employment that would help support the needs that they see every day. And it was really that conversation that turned this more from a public space project into one that had very significant workforce development. Through additional conversations, we've walked that back, and now it's a really nice blending of both that is about enabling students to gather and recreate while having that space, which is supportive of deeper experiential learning, while also recognizing the need to not have the campus drive curriculum, but have curriculum be supported by the campus. Next slide, please. This is an image of a map of the existing and future work planned in the back channel and within the tidal Cooper River. Mastery is situated at number 6 on this image, and portions of the Cooper River that are adjacent to this site are Category 1 designated. This is the highest level of protection afforded by the state of New Jersey, and it's the only urban waterway with this designation. And you can see the project is not occurring in isolation. The green represents existing park / orange lines are proposed waterfront, continuous waterfront property. Yellow represents opportunity areas, and full orange are in process projects. And I would say in total, there have been probably 200 million or more worth of investments made or planned in this section of waterway, all tied towards public space enhancement and activation. That's from grassroots all the way up to federal, all working in ways that are mutually reinforcing to deliver what residents have asked for decades in this space, which is access to their waterfront. Next slide, please. This is William Cramp School in Philadelphia. It's in the Fair Hill neighborhood. Most schools look like this in the United States. Lots of asphalt, hot recess, skinned knees and hands, tripping and falling on cracks, standing water, and like all of the environmental issues associated with such significant impervious cover. Nationally, conservative estimates indicate that the U.S. has over 2 million acres of unused or underutilized public space that could be tapped into for community schoolyard work. And we feel strongly at TPL that when transformed using this community first model and kept open after hours and on weekends, they can greatly service not just public space needs, but a lot of other social needs as well. So we do that, we accomplish that through a shared use agreement where the schools that take on improvements generated through these projects ultimately agree to keep them open after school hours and on weekends. And that's the fundamental difference, in our opinion, between a green schoolyard and a community schoolyard, is that this is really to service broader community needs and not just the climate needs typically associated with greening. And we also feel and know this, that every dollar invested into a public space is a dollar that is also partially invested towards public health and community and social cohesion and climate equity and justice and so much more. So outside of like the science of this, we just know how important these spaces are for people to come together, to find common ground where they didn't know it existed before, and to use that common ground to identify opportunities to work together in other ways that support their neighborhood and their community. This is really just about ensuring people have spaces to do more good together than they can apart. Next slide, please. Here is an aftershot of William Cramp School, same schoolyard. We recently also, through our stewardship program, re-engaged with this school to plant about 10 more trees on the site. So students were able to participate in that. They named the trees, which was a really cute and I think touching way to bring more human connection to nature and to inspire a deeper ethic of care for those trees. Next slide, please. This is just a photo of a principal who are our champions of these spaces, and she's the principal at Cramp. And just to read the quote here, it says, "The schoolyard is a tremendous source of pride for our students, parents, and staff. Its gardens serve as food sources and outdoor learning opportunities, and the play equipment promotes fun, high-energy physical activity. It is a crucial safe haven and social gathering place for Cramp and for Fair Hill families." Next slide, please. This is just an image of our schoolyard work nationally. So you can see on the side, I won't spend too much on this slide in particular, but so far 45 school districts have stepped up as leaders to bring this type of amenity to their community. We have hundreds of completed schoolyards in New York City alone. And yeah, this is just, I think, shows the visual scale of the work that is currently happening, and to know that there are still hundreds of thousands of schools across the United States that could benefit from this form of public space work speaks to the need as well, right? So it's not just about TPL doing this. We recognize that this is an all hands on deck moment, and there's currently some policy going through at the federal level that we're working to support, which would help enable this in more communities across the country. Next slide, please. All right, so our role in all of this is sort of three-pronged, and I would even add a fourth pillar, which is after project completion. We engage students in the participatory design process. That's the most fun portion, in my opinion, of this process. It's typically third and fourth grade students for several weeks during class time, usually 20 to 25 students. And this lasts anywhere from 3 to 9 weeks, depending on the school's needs. So we teach them about climate change, landscape design, budgeting, community engagement, social equity, anything that can come up during the life cycle, of a project. Students learn about it, and then they take those wishes and turn them into a design that considers all of the needs of the community and not just the needs of their class or school. The students then split into groups. They work together to develop those designs and ultimately present those designs to their class and vote on the best design before presenting that design to the rest of their school community through a design unveil assembly. And in Mastery's case, as a high school, we were able to take it a little bit deeper, teaching them about community power, GIS, asset mapping, budget management, construction management, landscape design software, solar and water career integration into the campus, and so much more. So I'm really excited about this being a high school. It's sort of a new area for TPL, but having this service as a model for what can be done in secondary spaces is, I think, really important for all of us to witness. We also manage design development. That's where we're at in the process right now. So we hold and manage professional services contracts. We coordinate with partners to ensure services and stewardship are provided at the site, and then ultimately manage construction with the support of design professionals such as NV5. And lastly, we fundraise. This does not occur for cheap or for free. And we work hard to cobble together capital stacks marrying public and private and corporate and philanthropic support to take these projects through to completion. Next slide, please. Just a quick bit on the impact of these projects. They're profound. I see it every day. At the curriculum level, we hear routinely that, every class wants to be outside. Gym classes in particular, like they can't get enough of these spaces, but sciences, math, and social sciences in particular, there's very direct ways that curriculum can be integrated into these spaces. You'll see them often through the signage that's installed, through the types of murals that are painted both on the ground and on the walls, the types of plants that are used, and the lessons plans that are provided to the school after, the projects are complete. Next slide, please. I think most important for us in the social area is the improvement that we see in performance really across all key areas at the school level. So we hear repeatedly about reductions in discipline issues, improvements in academic performance, improvements in social and emotional skills. And I will say, just like one anecdote, we had a school where suspensions dropped from over 50 to 0 the year after the schoolyard was completed. So obviously there's a lot that goes into that, but just showing the type of catalytic moment that these types of spaces can inspire, I think really speaks to the impact that they can have. And we also hear constantly about like stronger social bonds, new friends that form, existing friends that become deeper friends, not just during the school day, but in particular beyond school hours. And I would say just in this photo, this was sent to us by the principal at Patterson Elementary School. This was a yoga session that was led ad hoc by the students. There was not an instructor there. There was not a teacher that encouraged them to do this. This is purely students coming together and recognizing that they now had a space to be together in a new way. Next slide, please. This is my last slide on just community engagement after the fact. We recognize that a nice space is important, but it won't love itself. And that's really where community and additional stewardship resources come into play. These spaces are only as useful as the community is connected to them. So outside of the very engaged participatory design process, we have a stewardship program that continues to support schoolyards beyond the ribbon cutting. So we work to connect schools with resources, service providers, program providers. In this case, an urban and community gardening organization coming to teach students about how to plant and grow food in some spaces that are located within the schoolyard. But it's not just that. It's like bringing families together informally. These spaces have hosted baby showers, birthday parties, summer fun, COVID PPE drives, you name it, they do it. And yeah, I appreciate you all joining and listening to this presentation today. And with that, I will turn it over to Rosa.
Thanks, Justin. This one we just wanted to throw in. It's a new study. I don't know if anyone's seen it, but it came out, I think, last month, actually. And it's a pretty in-depth study of the heat reduction achieved by different types of landscape interventions. And it's very interesting. And of course, it's in Celsius, so converting it, botanical gardens / parks, which is a funny way that they've categorized it, reduces temperature by 4.9 degrees Celsius, which I think translates to about 2.5+ degrees Fahrenheit, but significant reductions in heat, which in a place like Mastery High School is critical. Next slide, please. So I'm going to start kind of at a higher level and then turn it over to Erin, and she'll get into a little bit more detail for the project to show you a snapshot of where we are now. Again, my name is Rosa Mannion. I'm a landscape architect with NV5, and I'm leading the design for this project and the project team. I work for NV5, which is a big, thousands of people global company. Lots of different services in different areas of the world. In our Philly office, we're about 10 to 12 people at any time, and work almost exclusively in the public realm, or the mostly public realm, which I would consider this to be sort of mostly public. everyone in our office is on the same page in terms of what we're doing. Everyone's very passionate about improving public space, or in general, just improving space for communities and making our cities better for people and for the environment in general. It's a great place to work. We're a very multidisciplinary team. We have water resources engineers, trail planners, and transportation engineers, and of course, landscape architects. It's a great, great multidiscipline team. Next slide, please. So I won't go into the site too much more than Justin has. He mentioned it's at the confluence of the Cooper River and the Delaware River Back Channel, across from Cramer Hill, which is amazing, and then Pine Point Park on the other side of it. Great location between the community and the river. Next slide, please. This is just FEMA's flood map, just to show where the 100-year line is roughly relative to the building. The building is that kind of funny geometric shape in the middle. And you can see that the floodplain is definitely creeping into the creeping closer to the building, but not there yet. And there's plenty of space above the 100-year floodplain, which is important for us because something that we were tasked to do was to think of the project in terms of quicker things that could be implemented so that students and staff could be enjoying them sooner than, let's say, the permitting process would allow. So trying to think of ways to kind of fast track parts of the project and really build excitement and motivation to keep it going. Next slide, please. And so, of course, staying out of the floodplain is important. This is the result of the participatory process that Justin described. This came about before we were brought on board and was part of the request for proposals. So we kind of took this as the jumping off point and try to dissect what we're seeing here so that we can carry it through into the design as it becomes more real and married to the survey and what we know about design and what conditions are on the ground. But you can see they had a pretty big vision for stormwater management, which is really cool. They were proposing to capture runoff from the roof and divert it into rain gardens at the front of the school, as well as rain gardens that are in the areas between the building and the river and the parking lot. They were definitely interested in cell phone charging. That came up at the pre-bid, and I think, you know, anyone with children of any age knows how important technology is to kids and in their downtime, especially. There was a lot of interest in gardening and community spaces for gardening, and as well as interest in recreational boating access and improving habitat at the river's edge. Next slide, please. I just wanted to show the team that goes into a project like this as we're thinking about bringing it into final design. Mastery and Trust for Public Land are at the top as kind of the team leads, and then we have a slew of engineers that are very talented, and then we have a slew of landscape architects, also very talented, of course, and we have survey and a cost estimator that we trust because Justin is trying to obtain funding and he needs to know what we're proposing, what it's going to cost, and if we're constantly balancing it as we're going, and he's saying, I don't think I can get that much funding, let's cut this amount, and we'll kind of go back and forth until we can get somewhere that seems fundable, at least at this point in time. We were lucky to have partnership for the Delaware Estuary on the team just to help us walk the site and kind of take a look at what was there and what opportunities existed for improving habitat. Next slide, please. And we think of all of our projects as green infrastructure and take that in a broad way to mean stormwater, but tree canopy, creating park space, cooling cities, providing recreation, and weaving that all together in a multidisciplinary way to really address the problems of our current times. Next slide, please. I wished I had time to update this for Camden. This is Northeast Philadelphia, but shows the same thing, which is, why is green infrastructure so important? And of course, it's because we develop and develop and develop and create always more impervious, which of course degrades our waterways and streams and rivers, increases pollutant and sediment loads, makes things hotter, et cetera, et cetera. We all know this by now, but I love looking at these maps because it's just, the top one is 1910, which is really not that long ago. And the little yellow pink buildings are the only buildings that were there. The Pequessing Creek is off to the right. And you can see the kind of the network of streams that were there before, which in the bottom image, which is 2 years ago, you can still see some of those streams, but many of them have been converted to sewers. And you can see the spread of development, of course. Next slide, please. So whenever we can, we try to, well, we always consider our projects from that standpoint. How can we use green infrastructure to improve where we live? And at the pre-bid, the students, there were a group of students that kind of talked about what this project meant to them. And it was very, very inspiring and just very eye-opening, because I didn't grow up in a place like Camden. I grew up in whatever, Navy housing, which is pretty much suburban sprawl. But to them, like having access, I'll show you photos of what their schoolyard looks today, but having access to that schoolyard, which is not anything to shout about, really meant a lot to them. And this project, where we have an opportunity to really bring nature into the campus and to connect them back to the river, was really important. And they were just very articulate about how they expressed that. They didn't use the word biophilia, but they talked about how nature calmed them down. Being in their courtyard helped relieve stress, helped them feel better, gave them a place to do yoga or to just like sit and feel the breeze on their face. And then thinking about that as one of the considerations as we moved forward through the design, along with a host of other things that we held close based on what we'd heard from the students and the participatory design process. Next slide, please. And the other thing to consider is the Camden County LINK Trail. I won't dwell on it much, but if you're not aware of it, it's a trail that will run 33 to 34 miles. I keep seeing different numbers, from Camden all the way to the Pinelands. And it runs right through this campus between the building and the river. On the right, you can see a zoom in of Camden. Mastery is up at the top where it says Future Wetland Park, which is funny because that's what we were thinking it was when the map was made. But anyway, the red line is segment 3, which Mastery abuts, and that's a really exciting thing because we're also lucky to be working on the link, and we can kind of think about how those two things interface on this site and with the rivers. Next slide, please. Just to show that the link, of course, it's so long, it goes through so many different landscape typologies, starting in Camden and going through Hatton Heights and Collingswood, sometimes along the river, sometimes on roads. It'll be a really interesting trail and a way to see the different landscapes in Camden. Next slide, please. This is right up the road from Mastery, and it shows an existing lot where the link trail will go through. Next slide, please. And just shows a vision for what this trailhead will look like and what kind of impact it might have in this community. This, of course, will link to the trail as it goes behind Mastery. Next slide, please. And next slide. this will be a very visible bridge over Route 30 for the link trail that'll really make this a visible thing for everybody that's using Route 30 and tee them off that there's a regional trail right here. Next slide, please. So we talked about phase 1. We can go to the next slide. And just to show it on the students' diagram, it included areas outside the floodplain, as I mentioned, and of priority for them is the courtyard space where they currently have their lunch, and then the kind of grassy area between the parking lot and the river where they currently have some raised beds, but it's a little bit of an opportunity there. Next slide, please. And looking at it in aerial view, you can see that there's no communication between those two spaces or the river. There's really no safe pedestrian route between the school and the river. And it's really, really a car-focused parking lot. And so we thought that would be, of course, a great opportunity to create a nice green connection between the school and the river and to make that as educational experiential as possible. Next slide, please. Slow connection, I guess. These are some images of the courtyard today. It looks pretty bleak to me from my not having grown up in a place like Camden, but I think the students that go to school here, they feel like this is an experience of nature. And I can't wait to see like what they think of what is built and how much more nature we can squeeze in there. Next slide, please. They have a space, which is great, but little bit of a prison-y feel, I feel. This is looking towards the river now through the parking lot on the left and on the upper right. The lower right is a view into that courtyard space, also through the parking lot. Next slide, please. You can keep going. This is the community garden area where we are proposing an outdoor classroom. Just lawn today. And then this is the view to the back channel on the left. There's a extensive established stand of submerged vegetation. Petty's Island is to the left, and you can't see Cramer Hill, but it's right there to the right. The bottom right shows the gate to the school that was opened, and students could finally go out there and see what they had right in their backyard. The upper right is what remains of the running track that used to be there. And when we walked the site with PDE, felt like it could be a pretty nice place for a riparian meadow. Lack of trees and shade. Next slide, please. And then this is our first concept plan. We did this after a series of site walks and looking at the survey and putting our heads together with the engineers and thinking about what this could be and talking with PDE as well. So I guess to start, the link trail you can see winding through the site. It's the darker gray pathway. And then you can see a sketch developing of what the courtyard could look like nestled in the building. And you can see that we're removing parking to establish a green connection between the courtyard and the outdoor classroom area, which has the red kind of tents over it. And then also at this time, we were proposing removing more parking at the bottom edge of the lot in order to capture stormwater and send it to a stormwater wet meadow. it seems unfortunately that the city's code may be a little prohibitive for this, even though I think we all think this is the right thing to do. We're trying to work through that and hopeful that we can figure something out. And we also wanted to propose removing several spots just to provide larger areas of soil for shade trees. There's no shade trees over the parking lot today, and it's brutally hot. Next slide, please. That shows the rendering. So here's a rendering. Justin was in the midst of applying for some critical grants and requested something eye-catching that would show the concept pretty clearly. So we chose this view from over the river, looking towards the building, and you can see the different spaces and how we're kind of carving a campus out of the parking lot. Not with the giant green connection, because we needed to preserve maintenance access for the dumpsters and the generator and whatnot at the back of the school. So we couldn't close that off completely, but making that green connection as big as we could to create a safe corridor between the school and the building. And then you can see that we were proposing the meadow as well as improvements to the more upland forest, and then at the high marsh edge and in the riparian woodland. We also felt a river view platform right over the submerged vegetation could be a great learning opportunity for students on the right side of the image. And then on the left side, wondering if we can get a floating dock and gangway in there past the mud flat in the Cooper River. That might be hard to pull off, but we're trying to see if we can figure it out for now. And that would give the students the boating access that they were looking for. Next slide, please. I think that's the last one. Yes, so now I will turn it over to Erin, and she will kind of walk through the detailed design. We've got about 20 minutes, Erin.
Got it. Thanks, Rosa.
Sure.
All right, my name's Erin Ramsden. I am a landscape architect with NV5 and have the great pleasure of working on this project with Rosa and TPL. This is my second project working with TPL, and it's we've had such a great time working with them. So I'm excited to. I get the super fun part as far as I'm concerned. I get to talk about the design. The detailed design. So I'm going to jump right in. This is an updated rendering of the larger plan that Rosa was just speaking about. This has, again, you see the link trail. I'm not sure. Can you see my cursor on the screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. So the larger link trail that's going through the campus, the alignment has been updated a little bit, but it still runs basically along sort of along the marsh edge, the high marsh edge on campus. We have, I'll get into some more details about the courtyard and the school, the outdoor classroom, but some of the other changes that we've made since that first concept design is moving away, as Rosa mentioned, from some of the greening in the parking lot until we can sort that out, but still being able to take back some of the parking lot area in this corner to create this large green connection that Rosa mentioned between the courtyard and the outdoor classroom, making that a better experience for the students as they move through these spaces. The larger trail connection, so the link sort of establishes this big backbone along the waters, closer to the water's edge. And then we also have, as I mentioned, there's the connection from the courtyard that brings us out to the classroom and it forks and can bring students out to that Riverview platform, what we're calling the Coastal Plain Habitats Trail. That's bringing them out to the lower marsh area, but then also through that Upland Habitats Trail. Another change that we made to the design at this point is looking at how if we can move forward with the floating dock and gangway boating access on the Cooper, how folks would get boats out to this area without having to haul them quarters of miles or longer. from the parking lot out to the boating access. So this is an access drive allowing giving a car access along with a boat trailer to bring boats down to this area, giving students just a shorter walk down to the gangway to access the water. I'm going to jump straight to stormwater. So as we talked about, as Rosa mentioned, stormwater management being a big driver in a lot of our designs. This is just a brief overview of how we're approaching that stormwater management. So there is currently, there has been some flooding or ponding issues in the courtyard in this corner. So that was something we were definitely working to address from the very beginning. But then we saw that there was a greater opportunity to capture stormwater runoff from the roof. All of this, these blue arrows are showing the direction of the water flow through the courtyard. I'll get into the courtyard design in just a moment, but there is a stormwater swale in this area that will connect water from these downspouts on the building. Then this little blue square here is an overflow for the stormwater swale that will then connect out to underground structures within the parking lot that will then feed to a larger rain garden within that green connection to the outdoor classroom. And we also found that we had a potential opportunity to collect stormwater runoff from the parking lot via an existing inlet. And so really be able to collect a lot more than just what was falling onto the courtyard, and give students a nice way to invite them into the outdoor classroom, being able to see this rain garden and understand and make these connections and see how stormwater is flowing from the building, from their courtyard through the rain garden, and then ultimately out to the river. So jumping into the courtyard design itself. So Rosa showed a few pictures of the existing courtyard. We saw a fenced in area, which is this area back in the corner here. There was an area with some blue picnic tables, which is this larger central area, and a picture of an access door on the building. This area of the building is the cafeteria, and students currently have access at lunchtime to come outside and enjoy the fresh air and eat outside when it's nice. So we wanted to sort of think about how we can use this space to really offer students lots of a diversity of places to sit and engage with each other, find respite during the day, but also provide very flexible spaces for lots of different kinds of opportunities, not just lunchtime. So the central area, I'm going to start by walking out the cafeteria here. This central area along the building is an elevated terrace that has a bar height dining rail with movable chairs. So offering students an opportunity to look over into the courtyard and sit and eat lunch or talk with each other. There is a portion of the terrace that would be covered by an awning to provide afternoon shade. Moving down, this is an ADA accessible ramp that will connect down to another deck area that's at grade. And this was an area that students were interested in having for yoga. This would also be a covered area, so allowing for students to be outside if it's raining, a dry space that's covered from the sun and from the elements, where they can do yoga, they can meet for classes, they can sit in, these are sort of flexible lounge chair type options that are shown on the deck. And then moving from that space, a concrete walk that connects back to another entrance to the building here, and then actually has a little footbridge that traverses over the stormwater swale that I mentioned earlier, that connects to the building, as well as and then out to the street. We're not showing that connection here. That will be underground. And so this little footbridge takes us out into the larger plaza, which can also be accessed by some steps and a more informal flagstone path. And so out into the plaza, which is we're showing as permeable pavers. So this will allow stormwater to infiltrate into the ground here, and any potential overflow would then flow into the stormwater swale or the larger system that would flow to the rain garden. There's lots of flexible seating options here. So this is, again, giving students a lot of flexibility to choose how they want to sit, how they want to interact with each other. These curved modular benches are fun. They can be sat on looking out into the swale or into the courtyard. We have picnic tables, these stepped seating area, which could conceivably allow for a class to come outside and sit while a teacher either gives a talk or a lecture, or they're discussing things outdoors. There's more lounge seating along this edge. And this connects to another entrance to the building here. And then moving out of the courtyard, we've established this connection. So establishing a crosswalk here, and sort of taking a big bite out of the parking lot by adding trees and grass and the rain garden that we saw in the previous slide. So moving to the outdoor classroom, we have the large rain garden here. So this is sort of the invitation for the students to come and explore outdoors. The rain garden here that's managing all the water from the courtyard and part from the parking lot. They'll walk through trees on a stone fines path. So these are natural materials that can take some wear. We've got a lot of trees as we move through here. The trees are focused towards this edge, and I'll explain why in just a moment. As we move through to this the outdoor classroom space, which is a larger shade structure. I have some photos that I'll share with you in just a moment, illustrating what these objects look like. That has, so under the shade structure, this can be used for outdoor lectures and classes, but also a flexible space that can be used for community events or performances. Again, with some more informal seating to the left of that. Once we get past the shade structure, the path forks. This path heading down towards the river is the coastal plains habitat that connects out to that Riverview platform. And then heading in this direction, we sort of enter the gardening and agricultural space. So we have a little demonstration garden area here where students can take part in maintenance and understanding of gardening practices or horticultural practices. Maintaining native plants in a sort of, this will be a bit of a demonstration of the meadow area that Rosa was mentioning further down in the larger campus area. Then we have a large mulched area that would be, that contains a number of raised beds, so planting beds, which they currently have on the campus. We're expanding the number and laying them out so for maximum sun exposure. So the reason that all of the trees are tucked over to one side is to allow maximum exposure for the planting beds here, and then another greenhouse, or rather a greenhouse in this area for indoor growing throughout the year. We've got some compost bins off to the side here to allow for, I understand they have a robust composting program, and as well as a vermiculture program that they're working on with worms. So that gives us a quick overview of the two campus spaces. I'm just going to flip through a couple quick slides of furniture. So these modular benches here, there's a lot of different options that really set the tone and the feeling of the space. So whether we end up going with these wood modular benches with the curved space in the courtyard, or to something in metal that but also offers that sort of whimsical and fun, more engaged sort of seating rather than just straight benches. We can also do something that's really outside of the standard, which something in bright colors would clearly set a tone for that courtyard space and allows for very flexible seating arrangements. So some of these loungers, so really giving students an opportunity to occupy the space in lots of different ways, and alone with a few students or in larger groups. Just different options here with different levels of maintenance. So that's certainly part of the consideration. Again, another colorful and sort of different option for seating. Looking into picnic tables, standard picnic tables, but then also thinking about options with seats with backs, allowing students to relax and enjoy the space outdoors. The dining rail that I mentioned and from the terrace with movable seats. So that allows, it sort of establishes itself as a railing and then also offers students the opportunity to sit and eat lunch, look through books, look at their phones, whatever they do out in the courtyard. And then also including opportunities for charging, whether it's computers or phones, will be certainly an important part of the design. So some of the other pieces, something I forgot to mention in the courtyard was the concept of silvacells, which are these structures that are basically underneath the paving that allow for tree roots to spread out and not be constrained by compacted soils that are typically required of paving materials. So this will help the trees have a healthier root system and be more robust and live longer and be more successful in that new habitat. The tree grates would also be a part of protecting the trees, preventing compacted soil around the base of those trees, again, helping them succeed. The other option is from the tree grates would be to use tree benches that also offer opportunities for seating around the trees, and then also help protect that the soil at the base of the tree. These are some of the some more fun seating options that we're looking at for the outdoor raised bed gardening area, just offering students flexibility in sort of how they approach interacting with the space, and offering some fun options. And I believe this is the last slide, and some paving options, the stone fines that I mentioned, composite decking for the terrace, and then possible options for the shade structures that are the shade structure that is on the outdoor classroom. A more robust shade structure can potentially offer the opportunity for solar panels, which would be another workforce development opportunity for the school, or something along the lines of a more fabric shade structure. And I believe that wraps things up. We have just a few minutes for questions or to go back and revisit anything. Thank you all for listening.
You're muted, Fred.
I said thank you very much. That was fantastic. That was fantastic. There's so many changes happening in that area, not only on your campus, but all around that North Camden Back Channel area. We do have a couple of questions. We have a few minutes to cover them. One is, let me see, let me do that. Will they be able to follow up? I guess will the school and the students be able to follow up after these landscape changes are made to track things like mitigation of heat island effect and improvement in water quality flowing into the river? I mean, is there that kind of scientific level of programming and curriculum that you're already thinking about?
That's a great question. The short answer is yes. The long answer is we have to figure out what that actually looks like. The school is very interested in water quality evaluation in particular. So they were talking about potentially, for example, having some tech inside of the inlet, which would capture flow and volume totals that are being diverted from discharge into the tidal Cooper and Delaware River. I think there's a lot of ways to do low cost, low tech evaluations here, right? So if we just think about like taking a standard laser type thermometer out into the courtyard at various times throughout the year, right? That's a more accessible format for, excuse me, a school that might have limited funding to launch something like that. But yeah, absolutely. They're definitely thinking at a minimum about water quality, and just this year launched a marine sciences class that was really well received by the student body that would look to take care of those things. And they'll be maintaining the rain garden too. So all of the GSI maintenance will come from either curricular or extracurricular student involvement.
That's fantastic. Thank you. Another question is, many schools and individuals resist having trees on their property because they're worried about the maintenance issues and the leaves needing to be raked and stuff like this, or could be slippery. Are the students going to be part of any type of maintenance of? I mean, I don't think they're going to be taking down dead trees and stuff, but are they going to be engaged with maintenance? You mentioned the raised bed gardens, but is there anything more than to the maintenance that they'll be involved in?
The school is very interested in seeing how they can use this space to best service workforce development needs. So with the amount of trees that are being installed over the next 5 years in the city of Camden and across the country, really through Inflation Reduction Act and other state funding sources, urban community forestry in particular is a pressing
Yes.
workforce
Yeah.
need, and the campus obviously has a great opportunity to service that, and the school recognizes that. So I'll say yes, but I cannot commit the school to doing anything, but that is the ethic that they bring to this, is make the students do it first, and if they can't, then they will hire a professional.
Cool. I had one other question here. Is the you had mentioned about the challenges of reducing the number of parking lot spaces because they, because there's a certain number required by city code. Has there been, and you had mentioned that you were working on that, and I don't know whether I should air quote, you were working on that. What does that mean? I mean, is there opportunity because the New Jersey just passed new inland stormwater rules, and
Mhm.
climate change is about some pretty impressive climate change rules are hopefully coming out in the next several months. The city of Camden, like every municipality, has to reduce the amount of stormwater runoff. This could be a perfect opportunity to do that. And it could be clearly shown why that's a value. So the next developer can't come in and say, well, look what Mastery did. We should be able to do the same thing. You're showing that you're reducing stormwater runoff for this campus. I mean, what are some of your next steps as far as getting those number of spaces reduced so you could put in this innovative stormwater management infrastructure?
What a question, Fred. It's 5 p.m. I don't have to answer that, right? I mean, I'll let Rosa share some of her background work on this, but my experience in Camden has always been that you just really have to have a deliberate conversation about the benefits and what those benefits provide versus the risk, in this case, of not having enough parking spots. We can show that not having 16 additional parking spots is of greater benefit to the student body than having them, right? But it's just about having that conversation, which, to be honest, has just not happened for capacity reasons at this point. It's a conversation that needs planning and thorough thinking, and we've just not had time to formulate that with the city yet.
But the official zoning response was there are a certain number of spots needed per student, I think, which is what the parking lot shows, even though we know it's over capacity because not even close to all the students drive. I think most of them walk or take public transportation, but if we wanted to reduce the number of spots, then I think the number was we would have to pay $6,000 per spot, according to the zoning response that we got, which, seems outrageous, frankly, given the goals of the state and what we know to be sustainable design going forward, to penalize people for making a parking lot better.
Well,
But,
is
yeah.
there opportunity for this to for an advocacy role, something that maybe some of the community members or the Delaware Riverkeeper Network might be able to partner with, and trying to take the wisdom of what we just heard, what you just said, Rosa, the wisdom to city council, where this, we might be able to, move it in and use common sense rather than the standard code enforcement rule, language.
I will say tentatively yes, Fred. But we are in this in-between window of getting information and figuring out how to achieve the outcome that we're looking for with the least ruffled feathers possible.
I hear you. I
right?
hear you.
But there might become a point where feathers could benefit from being ruffled to showcase the impact of removing those spaces. I don't know that we'll need to do it for the limited amount shown here, but I would love to see more green in this parking lot. And just to give an example, like a local example of how that feels, graduation is hosted in this parking lot. And we met with a student whose last name starts with a V. And they said that by the time they got to their name, they were like drenched in sweat. They didn't want to walk up and get their diploma. They felt uncomfortable. And it just shows the need, right? This isn't just a parking lot. This is a multi-benefit space that is used for a host of staging type of events, right? So it's about more than parking. And we're at this point just trying to formulate the correct approach. And I definitely have your email. And if we need someone to share that wisdom, I will look to you, Fred.
Very cool. Do any of the others presenters have anything else they want to share before we wrap it up?
No, thank you for inviting us.
Well,
Yeah,
thank
this
you
has been
guys.
great.
And thank you all three for your expertise and enthusiasm. This is wonderful. This really helped. This really benefited, obviously benefiting Camden, but the Watershed Congress too. I appreciate it. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a good day. Have a good afternoon, and enjoy your evening.